Hey guys, it's Melissa. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do some baking. We're gonna make some chocolate chip cookies, which are my absolute favorite. And I think that I make the best chocolate chip cookies, so I'm gonna go ahead and share some of my secrets with you. So yeah, let's get started. Alright, so first I'm going to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. I'm going to measure out and then mix my wet ingredients together. So let's start off with the sugar. I'm using two types of sugar, white sugar and brown sugar. I like using two different types of sugar because the different types of sugar give it a different textural feel. I like having more brown sugar in my cookies versus more white sugar because the brown sugar is what gives it that really dark caramel toffee flavor, which I like in my chocolate chip cookies. See, my ideal chocolate chip cookie is crispy on the outside and chewy on the inside and has gooey pockets of chocolate all throughout. So that is my ideal cookie. All right, so I'm just gonna measure out my sugar. I have these cute little cat measuring cups. They're very cute, but they're a little difficult to use and also difficult to wash. As you can see, this one, we broke the handle off of it, but they're still functional. First, I'm gonna start off with a 1/3 cup of white sugar. And then I'm going to scoop out my brown sugar. So I'm doing 2/3 of a cup of brown sugar. Here's 1/3. And here's 2/3. So I'm gonna go ahead and melt 1 stick of butter. And so for this recipe, I've been using melted butter. In past recipes, I've actually done room temperature butter. I don't really notice a huge difference between the two. I do think it's more convenient having the melted butter though, because sometimes I just really want to bake cookies right then and there, and it's I don't want to have to wait for my butter to get to room temperature. So nice and easy when I can just melt it. I'm gonna go ahead and crack my egg. I think that was possibly the worst egg crack I've ever done, and you guys all happen to see it. All right, now that my butter is all melted, I'm just going to pour it into my sugar and egg mixture and mix that all together. And so this is my wet ingredients bowl. So chocolate chip cookies were the first thing that I started baking, and they've always just been my favorite thing to bake. I actually was using a different recipe for the longest time. I probably switched to this one maybe about a year ago for no particular reason. I just wanted to mix it up and try a new recipe. This recipe though is loosely inspired by the Tasty recipe from Buzzfeed, so I kind of use that as a base, but then I've adjusted it through the times that I've made the cookies. So it's kind of I don't really follow all their steps exactly, and I have different quantities of some of the ingredients that they have, but it was loosely based off of that recipe. So I'm going to add in 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract into my wet mixture. It may seem a little weird to be using vanilla extract in chocolate chip cookies, but the vanilla really enhances the flavor of just the cookie batter and just of the chocolate chips. So even though it does seem a little counterintuitive, I think that it really makes a big difference. It also makes a difference the quality of vanilla that you use. I've noticed when using some of the cheaper vanilla extract alternatives, it doesn't taste as good. You really want the good vanilla. It does make a difference. So my wet mixture is all good. I'm gonna go ahead and start with my dry mixture. So I'm gonna start out with the flour. I'm gonna measure out 1 cup of flour. I really hope I have enough flour in this bag, but if not, I do have another bag of flour. Nope, I'm short. All right, time to open up another bag of flour. So here is my flour. I don't know if you can see, but I made a mess. I'm gonna put it in this container for my dry ingredients. Whew. Did you see that? I am making a mess. Flour is one of those ingredients where I feel the amount that you add really makes or breaks the cookie. When you add too much flour, they get to be a little bit cakier, whereas if it's not enough flour, they're really thin. And so I personally like it in the middle. There have been times where I've added too much flour and they're really cakey and I don't really like that as much. When I mess up cookies, it's always because I add too much flour. And then I'm going to add some baking soda and salt. So I'm going to add half a teaspoon of baking soda. So baking soda is what the cookies need in order to rise. And so the more baking soda you put in them, the fluffier they're going to be. And so I like my cookies to be like pretty flat. So I don't put a whole lot of baking soda in it, I just put half a teaspoon. And next I'm just going to add some salt. I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt, and the salt, like the vanilla, is going to just enhance the flavor. The salt really enhances the flavor of chocolate. Like chocolate and salt go really well together. So I'm adding 1 teaspoon of salt. And so these are my dry ingredients and I'm just gonna mix them all together. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and pour my dry mixture into my wet mixture. I'll pour half of it in and then mix it and then pour the other half in. So I'm just gonna start with this. So I've been baking so much since the whole social distancing thing has started. Like this past week, I think I've baked something almost every single day. You know, it's something that I really like to do and it helps to pass the time, which I like, but I am going to get fat eating all of this stuff. So it's kind of a problem, but I've been enjoying it. I have a bunch of other things that I want to make. I have some recipes saved and I'm like really excited to try some things. If you guys are interested, I would be down to do like a bake with me series, since we're all going to be inside and I have nothing else to do but bake, so I can, you know, bring you along with me. Hopefully that's something that you're interested in. All right, I'm gonna pour the other half of the flour in. I think making cookies from scratch is so easy and it's really fast. Like I can normally whip out some cookies in like half an hour and they taste so much better than store-bought or like box cookie mixes. So I think it's definitely worth it. And like recipes are pretty basic and simple and it's just really easy to do. And yeah, I would definitely recommend you guys to bake your cookies homemade because it's so much better. Like I cannot stress how much better they are. Like I will not go near like store-bought cookies. I'm like kind of the cookie snob now where I'll only eat like homemade. All right, time now for the most important part, the chocolate. I'm a little disappointed because I couldn't find the chocolate that I wanted at the grocery store. They were all out. I know ingredients are kind of hard to come by. I usually would prefer to use chocolate chunks because when they melt, chocolate chunks create like a nice pool of chocolate throughout the cookie. So that is what I would prefer to do. But I just have some semi-sweet chocolate chips here I'm going to use instead. They will still be just as good. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix them in. Probably like half of a bag. I kind of just like don't measure my chocolate chips out. I just kind of eyeball it to see how much chocolate I like. Generally, I like a lot of chocolate, so there will be a lot of chocolate. But you know, if you don't like as much chocolate in your chocolate chips, you can definitely just like put less in. But yeah, I normally just like eyeball the amount of chocolate that I add. Yeah, so half a bag. All right, so now for my favorite part of making cookies, that is eating the cookie dough. I probably eat maybe like at least 3 or 4 cookies worth of cookie dough before I actually bake it. But honestly, that's like my favorite part. If I would just eat cookie dough all the time if I could. So I'm gonna go ahead and taste it. Yeah, it's good. Look how good this is. Oh my goodness. Yum. So I have my baking sheet and I'm just gonna go ahead and put some parchment paper on it so it doesn't stick. So I don't really scoop it out in any fancy way or anything. I just use 2 spoons and scoop it out. So they don't always look perfect, but you know what? I don't really care, they're good. And they do expand quite a bit, so make sure to leave like adequate room between each cookie. And I kind of even them out if they start looking like they're going to be different sizes. Yeah, honestly, I don't really do this in any like particular way. I just kind of like will scoop them out and even them out if necessary. So this looks pretty good to me. So let's go ahead and put them in the oven. So I'm gonna start the timer at 10 minutes. But generally, I may have to put in a minute or two more depending on like the size of the cookie and how well they're cooking. I generally like to under bake my cookies a little bit so that way the center stays really soft and gooey. But I generally will just like watch it to see how they're baking and then take it out depending on what they look like. So it's been 10 minutes and the timer just went off, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull them out of the oven. I just looked at them and they actually look like they're ready. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull them out. And so what I'm looking for my cookies when they're done is that they're kind of crispy on the outside and then like the middles are still a little bit undone or unbaked. So some of them look a little bit overdone, but I think it'll be okay. Okay, the cookies are done and look at them. You can kind of tell there's a difference between the two batches. This one I overcooked a little bit, so they're a little bit crispier and darker, but you know, nothing wrong with that. They still taste good. And then these ones are pretty much cooked to how I would like them. You can tell they're like a little bit soft in the center, and like this cookie over here is probably like the most perfect one because they're all a little misshapen because, well, they're homemade and I put no effort into making them all look uniform. Look at this. Oh, they're so good. See, look how gooey and chocolatey they are. Those are my favorite kinds of cookies, the ones that are chocolatey and gooey and like crispy on the outside. So I'm enjoying this. Okay, that's it for today, guys. Make sure to subscribe down below and I'll see you again next week. Bye.